Well, once again, good day everybody. Today we're looking at chapters 25 to 31 of the book of Exodus. We're looking about the instructions given to God by Moses for the building of the tabernacle. Now, if you've read the chapters, you might think, oh my God, what's all this about? Well, I want to talk firstly about that. What's it all about? Why do we have all these detailed instructions about building this tabernacle? Then I'd like to look a little bit at some of the passages more closely. And then the third thing I'd like to look at is some of the key ideas that emerge from this and from the priestly school, of course, because these chapters are all written by the priestly school. Priests are interested in vestments, and priests are interested in what the church looks like and all that sort of stuff. So it is obviously the priestly school. And then finally, I want to look at, there's a New Testament link, which is pretty interesting and pretty significant. So first thing now is, what are these chapters all about? Okay, Tom?
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, if you remember, the book of Exodus is really the fundamental book of the Old Testament where God reveals himself to the chosen people. The little one in Exodus chapter 3, very significant, where God reveals himself to Moses as I am who I am. Then at the Red Sea, God reveals himself as Redeemer, Goel, the Redeemer. I'm there for you, Jewish people. And if you remember in the desert too, the wilderness time, God's there in the cloud and the pillar of fire to guide his people. He's there with them. And so what this is all about is now God's with us always in the tabernacle. So it's this is the great sense of where God is with us as Jewish people in the tabernacle. I will be your God and you will be my people. So if you like, the tabernacle and why it's spoken about so beautifully and so fully is to remind us that this is the continuing presence of God as God revealed himself on Mount Sinai. Now, how do we know that? Well, it's fairly clear from where this fits into the book of Exodus. If you remember, at the beginning of these chapters, and which is the beginning of chapter 5, it's continuing from chapter 24 at the end. And this is what was said. Yahweh said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there while I give you the tablets that I've written for your instruction." Accordingly, Moses rose and went up to the mountain. The cloud covered the mountain, and the glory of Yahweh settled on the mountain of Sinai. Moses went up the mountain and stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and said, and then the saying is, how you build this temple, how you build this tabernacle. And then at the end of these chapters, we have the words, when he had finished speaking with Moses on the mountain of Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of testimony, tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. So this is really God speaking to Moses, and it's as significant as the tablets of stone. And every detail of these chapters is therefore God giving it. So we're left with the strong sense that the tabernacle is built not so much by the will of human beings, not by the priestly school itself, not by any political motive. The tabernacle is built under the instructions of God. And that's how it fits into this book. So we're left very clearly with the sense that the tabernacle is where we find God today. And it's the dwelling place of God. Of course, it's a very symbolic tabernacle in a sense, even though the structure of 3 different places, an inner court, a court where the priests go, and then a surrounding court, that's fairly traditional in the Mesopotamian world. But the way it's described is very symbolic and with a great sense that this is the most perfect of structures. And so we have Numbers 3, 4 and 10 often appearing, and the proportions of cubes and rectangles. The various parts are very connected to each other in a geometric pattern. Then look at the metals. The most important metal, gold, is closest to the Holy of Holies, and then silver, and then copper. And then the colours too are all significant in that sense. The quality of the cloths and the orientation of everything. It's all giving us a sense that this is perfection, because this is where God is dwelling. So that's what these chapters are about, really. I'd just like now to spend a few moments looking at some of those aspects a little bit more clearly. Now, I have a handout for people. Now, so we're going to look at the structure. We're going really from left to right in a sense. Now, the Ark of the Covenant is, well, that's the Holy of Holies. In the Ark of the Covenant is where the Holy of Holies is, because that has the container, the coffer, the container made out of gold, which contains the testimony, the covenant itself. And above it is the mercy seat, the throne of mercy, where the cherubim are. And the cherubim, if you remember from the book of Genesis, they are guarding Eden. So cherubim are nothing like cherubs that you see floating around in Michelangelo or whatever. The cherubim, the cherubs, are protectors, strong protectors. So they're protecting the Holy of Holies from the profane outside world. And God, the mercy seat, is where God dwells. A strong sense that that is where the glory of the Lord is. So that's the Ark of the Covenant. And then, of course, we move beyond the curtain into the room where the priests can come. The tabernacle itself, of course, is that rectangular building, and that's got fine hangings all around it. And it's got frames or planks or boards. It's hard to imagine how it looks, how it really is, but there's some planks or the boards, whatever there, and it's surrounded with hangings. And then the outer hangings are goat skin. That's the idea, okay? In a little sense, of course, it's like a tent for the shepherd. And God's the good shepherd. This is the most beautiful tent that God could ever dwell in. Then there's that curtain separating the tabernacle from the outer courtyard. The veil of the temple is called a veil or a curtain. The veil in the temple is torn in two, remember, in the New Testament when Jesus dies. And there's an altar there in that courtyard, and that's where the various sacrifices take place. So that was the sacred place for the Jewish people. Just a little bit on the vestments now that the high priest wears. Four things just to speak about. There's the thing called the ephod. That's like a big blue apron.